every year when I go through and scout players at different positions, there are always those certain guys that end up being my favorites. When it comes to wide receivers in recent years, 2 years ago it was Kendall Wright from Baylor, which was funny because I was really watching to watch RG3, and I ended up falling in love with Kendall Wright as a prospect. In 2013's draft class, it was Cordero Patterson from Tennessee. And now in 2014, easily, out of all the great wide receivers that I've watched and all the great talents that I see, my favorite prospect, at least, maybe not the pure best, but my favorite prospect to watch has been Odell Beckham Jr. from LSU. There's been a lot of focus on his running mate, Jarvis Landry, who I also think could be a good NFL wide receiver, but there was never a doubt in my mind as I watched the 2013 season take off and go on, and I watched LSU film. There was no doubt to me that Odell Beckham was the better NFL draft prospect. And as the draft process went along, that more and more people would start to realize this and realize that Odell Beckham was one of the top 3 or 4 wide receivers in this 2014 NFL draft class. I was one of the first people that was projecting Odell Beckham to go in round one. And now, frankly, I'll be very surprised if he makes it out of the first 20 picks. When I look at Odell Beckham and I look at what he brings to the table, he brings quite a number of positives. He has that great initial burst, that great short area quickness, that ability to get separation, that vertical deep speed, that explosive big playability, a tremendous ability to run after the catch and make plays after the catch. On par, maybe I feel even, yes, with a Sammy Watkins from Clemson. This guy is a big-time explosive playmaker. There is no question about it. A guy that you could throw a screen pass to and he's liable to take it 70 yards to the house. A guy that can go over the top on opposing defenses, stretch them out, and score on a 70-yard pass that way. He's a guy that you can use on reverses and end arounds. Where I talk about with Mike Evans, he fit the one prototype that NFL scouts and executives love of that 6'4", 6'5", big physical red zone target wide receiver. Well, Odell Beckham at about 5'11" and a half fits into that old other mold of the 6 foot and under wide receiver that can line up outside, but can also line up in the slot. You can utilize him some out of the backfield. You can do all types of different creative, explosive things with him in your passing game as an NFL offense. Beckham brings all of that to the table, along with, to me, being one of the very best return prospects in this 2014 NFL draft, which I think only enhances his draft stock. Now, you could say the ability to return kickoffs has been de-emphasized a little bit at the NFL level, and that maybe is a bit true to a certain degree, but you still want that guy on a kick return that has the threat to change field position, if nothing else, and maybe even occasionally take one to the house. And he could do the same thing definitely as a punt returner, which is where I feel he's even better. You look at some of the weaknesses to his game. Obviously he's about 5'11" and a half, so he doesn't quite have that prototype size. And not only is he under 6 foot, but he's a little bit on the skinny side. So I have some concerns about his ability to hold up at the NFL level. And if he does get somebody that is physical with him, is he going to be able to break away from the physicality? Is he going to be able to deal with it, or is he going to be able to be taken out of plays by teams that'll get up on the line and jam him if he lines up, whether in the slot or whether he lines up outside on the line of scrimmage? That's something with an Odell Beckham, because of his size, you might have to be a little bit creative to create openings and create space so that way he could beat those jams and presses by not having them in the first place. Another thing that concerns me just a little bit about him is his hands. He dropped a lot of balls thrown his way. He made some big-time plays and some huge catches, and he showed the ability to make some really, really tough catches, but his hands to me were very inconsistent and sometimes, frankly, very, very lacking. And I do think it's something that he needs to work on for sure at the NFL level, because it doesn't matter how explosive you are or how many big plays you could potentially make. If you can't make that 3rd and 6 catch when your team really needs it, what good are you really? Doesn't matter if you can get open by 5 yards, 50 yards down the field if you're just going to drop the damn ball. That's a concern I have for him. In terms of overall, though, there really is a lot for me to like about an Odell Beckham Jr.'s game. Like I said, he's a guy that can line up outside. He's a guy to me that can line up in the slot. You can do all types of different things with him. He's an explosive threat with the ball in his hands. He's great with his run after the catch ability. He has the ability to get open in the short and intermediate area, even though obviously like any other receiver, he can still use some work on his route running, because at times it looked like to me he would cut his routes a little short. He wouldn't run with the proper angles. He didn't always set up his cuts the best, if you will. But again, just a lot for me to like. In terms of an NFL comparison for him, I look at somebody like a Deshaun Jackson, a guy that when he was at California made all types of big type explosive plays, lined up all over the field. But because of the fact that he wasn't 6 foot, and there were some questions in Deshaun Jackson's case, at least about his attitude and maturity, he actually dropped to the middle of the second round. Well, I would highly doubt, I don't hear those same concerns about attitude and maturity with an Odell Beckham Jr. I think teams look at those guys like the Deshaun Jacksons, the Percy Harvins, the Randall Cobbs, the T.Y. Hiltons, the Tavon Austins, and they see what those type of guys can bring to an NFL offense. And as a result, if anything, even with being under 6 foot, that will in no way preclude an Odell Beckham Jr. from being a top 20, 25 pick in this NFL draft. He's going in the first round for sure. Somebody is going to take him. And like I said, they're going to envision him, just like I do, as a Deshaun Jackson type of weapon that not only is a weapon on offense, but is a big time dangerous weapon in the return game on special teams, which is every bit as important. So to me, I have Odell Beckham as my number 3 wide receiver on the board and a top 20 talent. And I really, really look forward to seeing what he could do at the National Football League level. In fact, I'm a little disappointed that my Bears won't be looking at a slot wide receiver in the first round. I wish they were in the position to do so because I would love nothing more than for these guys to take somebody like an Odell Beckham Jr. because he's going to be a big time weapon at the National Football League level.